The Nittany Lion Wrestling Club held their first live event on Rokfin with 13 matches. And we're going to discuss every single match, but with so much going on, was the event actually worth it? Let's stop stalling and start talking wrestling. What's going on, wrestling fans? My name's Josiah, and welcome to Fanco Wrestling. What a great event that Rokfin put on last Friday night. It was an event that I personally really enjoyed. And before we get into all the results, I first want to talk about a couple of housekeeping items regarding the event, which I think are important to talk about, considering this was the first ever live event on Rokfin. So Rokfin, I know right off the bat, there were some people who were upset about it. There were a couple technical issues. I almost wasn't able to watch it for a second based on a glitch. But listen, I was able to watch the whole event. Like, once it started, there weren't any issues as far as I was concerned on my end. There were some small things like the Rokfin not having a TV app, at least on my TV, but I just plugged in my laptop and it was fine with an HDMI cord. There are some kinks that they're going to have to work out for future events, but let's be real. KO with Rokfin was able to put on this great card with 13 incredible matches. Well, I don't necessarily know that every single match was incredible, and I'll talk about that in just a minute, but the other thing I want to talk about is like a little bit of the setup and how it was run. Man, this event just ran smoothly. They just ran it straight through. There were no commercials. There weren't any breaks in between matches. It was just wrestling, which I loved. And I also really enjoyed the commentary with Jeff Byers and David Taylor. Byers is the voice of Penn State Wrestling, and of course David Taylor, former Penn State wrestler, still training at the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. But my favorite part about the event is that David Taylor really did a great job explaining the freestyle rules to people who may not understand what was going on. So with that being said, I enjoyed the event, but there are some things that I think needed some improvement. Now, as far as we get into the events, first let's talk about the first few matches that were going on here. Amine and Durso started out the event with a tech fall. Durso was able to get the tech fall pretty early on, in a minute and a half about. He was able to get that, and just on a couple scores and some turns, he just really got in quick and was able to score some nice points. And Durso is somebody who, he impressed me there because Malik Amin's a tough wrestler, so him being able to do that was kind of cool. Now, and that moved us on to Nevills and Wood. And this match came down to Wood ended up winning the match with a turn. Now, even though Nevills was able to get a takedown early on in this match, which I thought was good for him, and it showed that both of these guys were showing some action here. They were both attacking. And Nevills was also defending shots pretty well on Wood. But towards the end of the match, he was able to get in on a takedown in some turns and ended up winning that match 6-4. The commentators in that match said that match was super exciting. It was okay, it was okay to watch, and please let me know what you thought about every single match down below, just like especially the Bo Nickal and Alex Dieringer match. I really want to know your thoughts on that, and I'll be talking about that a little bit towards the end here. But next we have to talk about Zavala and Page, and man, this was one of the best matches. I'm not gonna lie, Zavala and Page was one of the best matches of the entire night. Now, Page ended up winning this match 14-10. Zavala, not Zavala as I have in the graphic there, but it was able to win this match 14-10 after Zavala came up with a strong opening, just scoring 6 points right off the whistle. She shot in and was able to score 6 points, and then Paige she just kept trucking, coming back. At one point, the score was actually 10-0, but because there was a continuation in the flurry, Paige was able to get on top with the takedown and ended up making it was 10-2, and from there she just kept coming back. She ended up tying it back up 10-10, and then ended up just winning the match 14-10, which was a phenomenal comeback. I mean, the best comeback of the night, like, no doubt. But what a great match, one that I really enjoyed. And that brought us into Abounader and Espinal, and there were some fun flurries in this match between these two. Abounader was able to score in the first and ended up scoring again, making it 5-2 at the break. And the first period was the biggest match here, or the biggest period with these two. Second period, there wasn't really much action. Espinal really wasn't able to get to any attacks, and at the end he tried going for that attack, trying to score some points there. just kind of waited too long, and Abounader ended up coming on top 7-2. And that brought us into the meat of the lineup here. The meat of the lineup was Zain and Nolf and Cenzo, which I think they placed these matches at a perfect waypoint. I really actually liked the way that this card was put together in the order of the events. One of these probably should have ended up being the main card. I think Nolf and McFadden was probably the best match of the night, in my opinion. But Zain and Pantaleo was also a solid match. Now, Pantaleo, he was bigger and a little bit stronger than Zain. Zain was wrestling up here, and because of that, Pantaleo definitely had some size on him, and you could tell that. Now, that didn't stop Zain from being on the constant attack. Pantaleo was also constantly kind of moving that, getting some action, but Zain was just a little bit too much for him with all that action. Pantaleo was actually the first one to score a takedown on Zain, but then Zain was able to come back here. He kept, as Zain always does, going after that head, just constantly moving him, and then ended up getting in on the beautiful single leg finish, making it 3-2 with a minute left, and ended up being able to fend off Pantaleo in the last, and towards the end of the match, and Zain was able to win that 3-2, and he did a really good job there. And that brings us to Nolf and McFadden, which, again, like I said, I think this is the best match of the night. In some of these matches, you didn't get a lot of action, or it was kind of one-way scoring. Not in every single one, but in a couple of them. But I think in Nolf and McFadden, these were two guys that were pretty evenly matched as far as, like, how they were constantly attacking each other. Both these guys getting in on shots. Both these guys getting takedowns. I mean, both these guys were just pulling out crazy things, getting in some great scrambles, some fun flurries that I really enjoyed watching. Nolf, as usual, was pulling out some crazy things, and this was kind of cool because these guys had both wrestled in cards earlier this summer, and now they're going head-to-head against each other. I mean, it was just aggressive from the onset of this match, and Nolf was able to get a lot of points on the edge, a lot of push-outs, ended up making it 5-2 at the break, and that did end up being the final score was 5-2. Even though McFadden was staying in good positions, I think Nolf, just another note on this match, Nolf was just looking jacked. He was looking jacked. I don't know if he's been weight training or what's been going on there, but he was looking very, very strong. And then we get into the second half of this event. And the second half of this event was also pretty solid. I think we had even a couple better matches here. And we'll talk about the end here. But Vincenzo Joseph went up against a former Penn Stater in Valimont. And Cenzo ended up beating him 5-0. Cenzo got in on the takedown, the first takedown of his, ended up hand fighting a lot in kind of towards that first period and end of that match. And the second one, he was just able to defend a lot of shots, which Vincenzo was doing really well. One of the things David Taylor said is, you know, you expect Vincenzo to just get these constant throws, and over and underhooks, but he really didn't hit a lot of that in this match. You didn't really see a lot from Valimont in this match, and because of that, Vincenzo was able to come out on top with the victory. And that brought us to Kerkvliet and Hemida. And this was a match a lot of people were looking forward to. A lot of people were looking forward to this because they wanted to see, is Kerkvliet the real deal? You hear a lot of talk about Kerkvliet, number one recruit in his recruiting class. I ended up transferring from Ohio State to Penn State now and is training at the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. But how's he going to do? Well, he looked good. I mean, first of all, he was looking built. I think is one of the big things. Even though I don't know how he's going to do at heavyweight. He looked a little bit light for like a heavyweight, but he looked strong. But he was able to get in on that first shot and takedown right to a leg lace and just scoring early on Hemida. Kerkvliet just kept getting strong, aggressive takedowns, getting in deep on those takedowns, and ended up getting that tech fall in the first period. So yeah, Kerkvliet was looking strong in this match. He's a good freestyle wrestler, and he showed that here. And that brings us to Massa and Bekzad. And these two wrestled a pretty good match as well. The score ended up being 5-4. Massa ended up getting the victory. And there wasn't a lot going on in the first period, but kind of the second period is where things picked up when Massa was able to get that chest lock at the end, is where he was able to score points and ended up winning that match. Now, that brought us to the next match, and I'm not going to lie to you here. This is where, going into this, without any breaks, it's kind of tough to find a good time to go to the bathroom. And that's actually when I went to the bathroom. I tried to get in and out. Maybe TMI for you, but I missed the beginning of this next match with Valencia and Salata, which I believe where Valencia got in on it quick on a takedown and a leg lace to making it 4-0. And of course, I missed that scoring, but it ended up being 4-0 at the break. And Salata was able to get in on a quick takedown after a pretty nice scramble between these two. And I think this was a very evenly matched matchup. I think these two wrestled really well. It was very exciting. And then Valencia ended up getting that takedown at literally the last second. The last second of the match, Valencia got the takedown out of bounds, driving Salata to her hip to win it with the criteria 6-6. What a match. And my second favorite match of the night was probably Thomas Gilman and Darren Cruz. And this match started out pretty well. It started out pretty solid with Cruz getting that opening takedown right away. But Gilman just kept pushing Cruz, pushing him. He was trying to break Cruz, and ultimately you did see him break him. Gilman kept getting push-outs, kept getting points for that. It was actually 3-2 at the break. So, like I said, at the beginning of this match, it was pretty evenly matched. But you see with the score here, it ended up 14-4 with the Gilman tech fall. Now, this was huge. In my opinion, this was a massive takeaway from the night, is that Gilman was able to tech fall, just he was able to break Cruz. The last time that these two wrestled was at the World Team Trials in 2019, whenever it was some pretty close matches within, I think it was like 5-2 and 4-0. Now, Gilman won both of those, but this time he looked dominant. And I don't know if that's training now with the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club, a switch up in training from the Hawkeye Wrestling Club to the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. You saw a lot there, which was pretty awesome. And David Taylor commented on that. You heard him commenting on it a couple times throughout the night on multiple things, just kind of how great the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club was there. Yeah, he was biased there, I mean, obviously, but it was just kind of funny to hear. But I still think that David Taylor had some good commentary. Even his comment about Thomas Gilman's Scrap Life shoes, which he said make him look a little bit faster, which some obvious product placement there. I thought it was just kind of funny, but yeah, it's just interesting there. And that brought us to Kyle Snyder and Mike Macchiavello. And this was another tech fall, a one-sided match from Kyle Snyder. Lots of hand fighting in the first. Now, he didn't end up teching him in the first, but Snyder was able to get on some nice shots, some single legs, and just kept getting some takedowns. Even Mike Macchiavello was shooting. Like, it wasn't like he was being like real passive or defensive. He was shooting in on Snyder, but Snyder was just able to defend and then get to his attacks. It was 8-0 at the break, and then Snyder ended up getting that takedown to, I believe, to a turn right in the second period, and was ultimately able to get the tech fall by a 12-0 decision and beat Mike Macchiavello. I don't think it was a huge surprise there, but at this point, I believe Nittany Lion Wrestling Club had won like 8 out of the 12 matches, and ultimately ended up winning 9 out of the 13, which was huge. And I kind of expected this, but there were some good matches, some good battles, and that brought us to this last match with Bo Nickal and Alex Dieringer. This was, it was the headliner of the night, and unfortunately, it was probably the most boring match of the night. I was expecting more from these two, both three-time national champions. Both had some similar international success in freestyle. Neither of them have made a senior world team yet, but both are looking to do that. And these two were they were very evenly matched. Not a lot of action. They were both kind of just sticking in there in that collar tie, trying to find what to do. On Bo's shot, he was able to, Bo actually was one guy able to shoot in, but ultimately Dieringer ended up getting his defense and getting the push out on Bo to score 1 point in the first. And then we moved on to the second period. And again, there just wasn't much action here, unfortunately, in the second. And Dieringer ended up getting on the shot clock, and ultimately the time ran out on the shot clock, and Bo got the point. And because of that, Dieringer ended up trying to open up in the last 15 seconds of the match. It was 1-1 at that point. Bo Nickal ended up winning on criteria, even though Dieringer was going on those attacks at the end there. Bo was just a little bit too defensive, and ended up winning the match. So Bo won the match, but it wasn't a lot of excitement to end off the night. You know, I would really wish we would have ended on something crazy, like, with the Valencia getting that last takedown in her match, or Zayn Rutherford getting his last takedown in keeping off Pantaleo, or even those crazy Nolf and McFadden scrims. I kind of wish we would have ended on something like that, but we really didn't get a lot of excitement at the end there. Now, overall takeaways from this, I think my biggest takeaway was just seeing the improvement in Thomas Gilman. Even Kyle Snyder, seeing him in the Nickal Wrestling Club singlet was pretty cool. But, I don't think that he showed a crazy ton of improvements. I mean, I think he's just that solid of a wrestler is what I mean by that. He's such a good wrestler that he looked technical. He looked like a good wrestler. I think those are some good takeaways. And I'm interested to see what Rokfin has going forward in this event space going forward, how they are going to compete with Flow Wrestling. Because ultimately, Rokfin and Flow are going to be competing head to head in these live events. Which one did you like better? Did you like Beat the Streets? Did you like this Rokfin event? Did you like them both? I personally like them both. I thought it was worth the money, and I thought it was, a great night of wrestling.